Okay, so as I said during our demo session, okay, today what we'll try to do is that, okay, today we'll first talk about, okay, what is meant by the term, or we'll try to introduce ourselves to the term WebSphere application server. If you want to understand what is meant by the WebSphere application server, it's very important that you understand what is meant by the term application server. If you see the term application server, okay, what is meant by the term application server? How I can understand the application server? Very simple. If you want to understand what is meant by the term application server, or what is meant by the term application server, you have to understand the history of it. Okay, the web application server came into the market because of some disadvantages, because of some problems in the web server. But what is this web server? Again, a new term. Okay, if you want to understand the web server, how is the web server came into the market, you have to understand how Java has evolved. Okay, so if you go back to the history, before the Java was present as a programming language, before Java was ruling as a programming language, we had a programming language by name scripting languages. Okay, scripting programming language is a programming language that were used by the developers, that were used by the programmers to develop their applications or the modules, okay, using the scripting programming language. But what is the scripting programming language? The best example for the scripting programming languages are your HTML programming languages. Okay, the HTML programming languages are nothing but the classic examples for the scripting programming language. So if you see the scripting programming languages like your HTML programming languages, they are the programming language which has only one advantage, which has only one feature, which has only one disadvantage called as it can generate static content. What is the scripting programming languages? Scripting programming languages are the programming languages which were very widely used, okay, before the Java was introduced into the programming world. So using the scripting programming language like that of your HTML programming languages, people can generate the static content. People can generate the static output. But what is the static output? How we can understand the static output? The static content or the static output is the only one advantage which we get with the scripting programming language. It is only the one feature of the scripting programming language. It is only one disadvantage of the scripting programming language. So if you see the scripting programming languages, okay, the scripting programming languages are used by the developers to generate a response, to generate a content called as static content. Any application developed using scripting programming language can only generate the static content. But what is the static content? What is the, how I can understand the static content? The static content or the static output is nothing but, okay, it is the one, okay, whenever I'm trying to develop the programs or whenever I'm trying to develop the applications, okay, with the scripting programming language which can generate only the static content, the static content is nothing but the output or the response that remains constant for a longer duration of the time. Okay, what is mean the static content? Okay, the static content or the static output is nothing but it's an output or it's a content that remains constant for an infinite amount of the time. Such kind of an output, such kind of a content that remains constant for an infinite amount of the time, it is called as static content. The best example for this, okay, would be your gmail.com. Okay, for example, let's say that you open your browser and you type in the URL called www.gmail.com. When you open the www.gmail.com, okay, the logo called as in Google, the text called as, okay, one account all Google, okay, the header and footer which you see here, you come and visit the gmail.com today or you come and visit the gmail.com tomorrow or after 1 week. 99% of the time, this static content like your images or your text data or your CSS content remains constant for a longer duration of the time. Two, remains constant for a longer duration of the time. Such kind of an output, such kind of an content that remains constant for a longer duration of the time, it is called as a static content. Okay, your scripting programming languages are expertised in developing any application which has the capability to generate the only and only the static content. Perfectly fine. Scripting programming languages were there, and using them I can generate, or I can write a code which will generate a static content. Perfectly fine. Okay. So when I'm saying that my programming languages can generate the static content, static output, or the static response, we need a server, okay, to process this particular code. Okay. Scripting programming languages are nothing but a kind of a programming language. These programming languages can generate a static content or static output once I process them. So I need some server, I need some container to process this particular code related to the static programming language or the scripting programming language. Okay. So if you see the static programming language or the scripting programming languages, these are the programming languages, okay, which can generate the static content. The server that is used to process the code related to the scripting programming languages, or the server that is used to process the scripting programming language is called as file system handler. Okay, the server or the container that is used to process the code related to the scripting programming language, okay, is called as file system handler. Okay, the file system handler is a server, or it's a container that is responsible to process the code, okay, related to the scripting programming languages, okay, and hence I can say that my file system handlers are the one which can successfully process the code related to the static content. Anyone, any questions? Jay, we just started off our session. We just kicked off our session with understanding of the scripting programming languages, which were the technologies that were there long before the Java was present. Okay. Anyone, any questions still here? Okay. Silence, I'll take it as a no. So if you see this file system handler, okay, what I said, a file system handler is nothing but it's a server. It's a container that is responsible to process the code related to the static content. So this is my file system handler. Okay, and what this can do, this can generate the static content. Okay, anything and everything related to the static response or the static code, okay, related to the scripting programming languages, okay, that can be comfortably taken care by the file system handler. Perfectly fine. Okay, I was using the scripting programming languages, developing the applications which can generate the static content. Everyone was very happy, but suddenly Sun Microsystems came into the market. The Sun Microsystems came into the market and it said that as part of my Java J2EE programming language, I have a programming language by name Servlets and JSP. Okay, what are the Servlets and JSP? Okay, Servlets and JSP are nothing but the programming languages that were introduced by the Sun Microsystems company, and the unique feature about the Servlets and JSP is that, okay, they can generate not only the static content, but they can also generate the dynamic output, okay, or the dynamic content. Okay, Servlets and JSP are nothing but they are the programming languages coming from the Java J2EE API from the Sun Microsystems company, which has a unique feature that it can generate not only the static content or the static response, but it can also generate the dynamic content or the dynamic response. Clear? Okay, we know what is meant by static content. Anything and everything that remains constant for a longer duration of the time, for an infinite amount of the time, is a static content. Like your images, your headers, your footer, your logos, like that. These are the one that comes up. These are the one that remains constant for a longer duration of the time. Okay, what is meant by dynamic content? What is meant by dynamic response? Dynamic content or the dynamic response is nothing but it's an output It's a response, okay, which will give you the latest information. What do I mean by that? A simple example, okay. I go to an ATM machine, insert my debit card, and I click on the account balance. I see that in my account I have $6,000 available in my account. So I thought of withdrawing some money, and I say withdraw all, okay, and I try to withdraw, let's say $300. When I'm trying to withdraw $300 from my total credit of total account balance of $6,000, again when I'm trying to click on the account balance, it shows me the latest balance as $5,700, which is the latest one. Taking another example, okay, let's say that I'm trying to watch the live cricket match between India versus South Africa. So I open crickinfo.com and click on the live scorecard. I don't do anything, I don't refresh, I don't do anything. Automatically it gives me the latest scorecard, okay, without I manually trying to do anything. Okay, I have some emails coming into my Gmail or Yahoo or a Facebook. I try to read each and every message inside the facebook.com. So the moment I try to start reading each and every message, automatically the total number of 100 messages, 100 emails goes from 3 to 2, 2 to 1, 1 to finally 0. So such kind of an output, such kind of a response, okay, is nothing but dynamic content. The dynamic content or the dynamic response is nothing but, okay, it's a way, okay, it's a updated or the latest information I get by hitting the server. Okay, your servlets and JSP are expertised in generating the static and the dynamic content. Clear, everyone?
Yeah, you said the static is like manually configured and the dynamic is automatically configured, correct?
No. How it is being implemented will not talk, because that comes as part of the programming.
Okay, statically, okay, dynamically, whenever is happening, is automatically happening, which is to some program take place, correct?
Perfect. Because of some programming taking place, okay, because I don't want to pull you into the different subject, because again it might be confusing for you, but let me give an heads up, okay. Instead of servlets and JSP, we have something called as an HTTP servlets, okay. In case of a JSP, it's nothing but an dynamic HTML page, okay. If you see an HTML, generally it's a static page, okay, but if you put some dynamic nature to that, that's nothing but your JSP. So as a developer, as a Java J2EE developer, I write a servlet, okay, extending the HTTP servlet, okay, and I have some methods inside that, which I'll say that the moment someone gives the user ID and password, clicks on the login button, do this, okay. I write the logic in my Java program. So as an end user, when you people hit the application, I get that updated information because of the logic that is being implemented by the program. Clear?
Yes, but I didn't get this servlet things. What is the servlet?
Servlet is nothing but it's a kind of a programming language. Okay, like we have a HTML, XMLs, okay, JavaScripts, okay, shell scripts, okay, like that. Servlet is also a kind of a programming language coming from the Sun Microsystems family,
which is we can call as a tool as well, correct?
Sorry.
Servlet we can call as a tool.
Don't call it as a tool, okay, because tool means again there will be a little bit confusion, okay, because tool is nothing but, okay, it's an auto, you don't need to do anything, just give your requirement, it gives you the output. For example, let's say that, okay, I have got the Excel sheet, okay, Excel sheet, if you see here, it's a tool for me. Why I call it as a tool? Let's say that I give some input data to this tool, okay, and I ask it to get a graph, okay, then it can get a graph. For example, let's say that, okay, I'm writing the number 1 here, okay, 2 here, okay. Now what I have to do, there's no need for me to, okay, type in the words 3, 4, 5 like that. When I drag and drop it here, okay, automatically this will take place, okay. The tool automatically takes care, okay. This is nothing but programming language. Servlets and JSP are nothing but programming language. You have to tell inside your program how the logic has to get executed. Clear?
Thank you.
Anyone, any more questions? Okay. Silence, I'll take it as a no. So, servlets and JSP are nothing but the programming languages which can not only have the ability to generate the static, but they can also generate the dynamic content. So, when they're trying to generate the dynamic content, okay, people were very happy and everyone started moving away from scripting programming languages. Like, I'm having an Nokia 6600 and I'm having an iPhone 5G or a 5C, that's the latest in the market. When I'm asking, hey guys, do you want 5C or do you want a Nokia 6600? Everyone says that I want to go with a 5C. While it's more advanced, it has much more number of advantages, much more number of features which aren't seen in a typical iPhone 2G or a 3G or a 4G. So everyone started jumping into the 5C. Similarly, since compared to the scripting programming language, since Servlets and JSP has little bit more extra advantages, it can do little bit more extra. Every developer, every programmer started moving away from scripting programming languages to the Servlets and JSP. But there is a problem. What is the problem? To process the code related to the scripting programming languages, I have a server by name, okay, file system handler. But to process the code related to the Servlets and JSP, I don't have anything. You might say that, Shiva, why you're not using the file system handler? The reason I can't use a file system handler is my file system handler can process only the code related to the static content. Okay, but your Servlets and JSP can not only generate the static content, but it can also generate the dynamic content. So all the programmers started moving away from scripting programming languages to Servlets and JSP. Okay, so to overcome this particular hurdle and to come up with a server that can successfully process the code related to the Servlets and JSP, people started doing a lot of R&D. After doing a lot of continuous R&D and after understanding the features of Servlets and JSP, they came up with a server. They came up with a container called as a web server. The web server or a web container with a Servlets container inside that, okay, was used to process the code related to the Servlets and JSP. Clear? What is a web server? A web server with a server container inside that was the one that is used to process the code related to the Servlets and JSP. But when I try to open and see what exactly is there in a web server with a server container inside that, the web server had two parts inside it. One was called as file system handler. The other one was called as servlet container. Okay. The first one was called as a file system handler, okay, and the other one was called as servlet container. The servlet container was taking care of anything and everything related to the dynamic code related to my Servlets and JSP. Clear? Both of them put together, I call it as a web server. So inside a web server, anything and everything related to the server JSP application, when you deploy anything, for example, you deployed an abs.var, anything and everything related to the static content, it is taken care by the file system handler, and anything and everything that is related to the dynamic content of your server and JSP is taken care by the servlet container. Clear? Am I clear to everyone? Anyone in questions? Okay. I couldn't understand your question, Nasima. Why?
Oh, no, I'm okay. Yeah, you can continue.
Okay, cool. So, silence means I assume no questions from Mehboob and Patel. Okay, so everyone was very happy. We have a web server with a servlet container that was processing the code related to the Servlets and JSP, and Servlets and JSP are expertise in the static and the dynamic. Everyone was very happy. But the problem here is that Sun Microsystems company didn't stop their R&D with the web server. Okay, they didn't stop their R&D after introducing the Servlets and JSP. They continued their R&D, and they came up with many programming languages. But out of those multiple programming languages that evolved from the Sun Microsystems, which is right now called as an Oracle, one very important programming language is the EJB and the RMI. What is this EJB and the RMI? EJB and the RMI is nothing but Enterprise Java Bean. Okay, and RMI is nothing but Remote Method Invocation. Okay, so if you see your EJB or the RMI, which is called as an Enterprise Java Bean or Remote Method Invocation, both of these programming languages, okay, have a unique ability that, okay, they can do whatever your Servlets and JSP can do. Okay, they support the dynamic as well as the static content. But apart from that, they also have another feature called as an remote communication. I'm just sitting in India, Hyderabad. Okay, I'm taking a session to the people present in US. Okay, that's a remote communication. Okay, you have your Gmail or the Yahoo Mail accounts created. Okay, when you are there in India or non-US countries. Okay, but still that emails and everything are accessible even though you are there in US. Okay, we have a friend of us staying in, let's say, Ohio, and we have another friend of us staying in New Jersey. We can talk to both of them using a phone line. How it is possible? Again, remote communication. So if you see the remote communication, okay, remote communication are the very powerful advantage we have with the EJB and the RMI. So if you see the remote communication, okay, the remote communication is an extra added feature that is seen only in the EJB and the RMI when compared to the Servlets and JSP. Automatically, since it has extra advantage, since it's much more advanced when compared to the Servlets and JSP, people started moving away from Servlets and JSP, and then they started developing their applications with the EJB and the RMI. But there is a problem. What is the problem? To process the code, anything and everything related to the Servlets and JSP, I have a server by name web server. But I can't use my web server to process the code related to the EJB and the RMI. You might ask me why. Because my web server is an HTTP protocol dependent server. What do I mean by that? I mean to say that any request hitting the web server, it has to be HTTP. Any response coming out of the web server is an HTTP. Okay, anything and everything. Okay, any communication that is coming to the web server should be a HTTP or a HTTPS. Any response coming out of the web server has to be HTTP or HTTPS. Okay, which is really not at all an suggested one. Why? Because when I'm using my EJB and the RMI, they demand for a protocol independency. Okay, if you see a remote session, I can do a virtual classroom training. I can do a session remotely with the help of a Skype. I can do a session remotely with the help of a GoToMeeting. I said that no guys, I will not use a GoToMeeting. If you are okay with the session, come only with the Skype, else I'll not take the session. Then what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to be very robust. I'm trying to be very stubborn. Okay, so the chance of people coming in taking a session from me would be very less. So similarly, when my web server is very stubborn and saying that anything and everything communication you're trying to do with me has to be HTTP or HTTP protocol. But when the EJB and the RMI, if you see here, they demand for a protocol independency. They say that, Shiva, we are not sure whether we'll be using an HTTP or HTTPS or a T3 or a SOAP. I'm not sure about that. I need the protocol independency. So what happened? Again, there was a demand to come up with a new server that can meet the requirement. But people right now, what they did is that rather than doing the R&D, okay, on the present requirement, when they're trying to do an R&D on the coming up with the server, they thought about three very important things. The first one was, what is the present requirement? My present requirement is to come up with a server that can process the code related to the EJB and the RMI. Second important thing, they thought that, okay, tomorrow a new technology comes, how do I support that? Third important point, okay, what are the disadvantages present in the existing server or existing environment, and how do I overcome in the latest version? So thinking about these three important points, people started doing a lot of R&D, and finally they come up with a server called as application server. Okay, they finally came up with a server called as application server. What is an application server? My application server is a protocol independent server that has a capability to process the code related to any kind of a protocol, and they can process not only the EJB and the RMI, Servlets and JSP, static, dynamic, anything and everything can be done by the application server. And apart from that, my application server has much more advantages like transaction control, resource management, okay, security, high availability, clustering, okay, like that, okay, whatever the things that aren't seen in the web server, those are highly available in the application server. But if you try to cut and open the web server, application server, the application server had three important parts inside it. The first one was called as an file system handler, okay, which was responsible to take care of anything and everything related to the static content, okay. The second was the servlet container, which was responsible to take care of anything and everything related to the Servlets and JSP, and the third one was EJB container. Okay, this one was responsible to take care of anything and everything related to the EJB and the RMI. Clear? All these three layers put together is called as an application server. When you deploy any code at the application server level, for example, abc.ear, in case if it's sent static content, file system handler will be invoked. In case if it's sent servlet container related request, okay, a servlet JSP related request, okay, servlet container will be invoked. In case if it's a remote call, EJB container will be invoked. Anyone, any questions?
EJB container, no, I'm just confused with the EJB container. I got the RMI, but EJB container, I'm just got confused.
See, remember, very simple. EJB container is nothing but like how we have a servlet container to process the code related to Servlets and JSP. Similarly, we have a container running EJB container. This is exclusively meant to process any code related to the EJB and the RMI. Simple example I'll take. Okay, let's say that, okay, every one of us might be knowing something called as a mixer and a grinder. Okay, if we see a mixer, okay, inside the mixer, okay, what we do, we try to grind the pulses, okay, we try to grind the rice. But let's say that I'm feeling very hungry, I want to have a juice. I don't put that one in the mixer. Okay, to do that work, I have another component called as a juicer. Okay, that machine I'll be using it to process anything and everything related to the juices. Okay, this grinder or a mixer, I'll do it to process anything and everything related to the rice or the pulses. Exactly, it's the same concept.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone, any more questions? Okay, silence, I'll take it as a no. Give me 2 minutes, guys. Yeah, sorry everyone. So since no one is not having any questions, let me continue my session. Okay, so This was the period above when we had this, okay, application server. Okay, our application server, we know what is meant by an application server, we know what is meant by web server, and we know how does the application server came into the market, okay, from the web server. So if you see a WebSphere, now after we know about what is meant by the term application server, next important thing is we have to understand what is meant by WebSphere application server. Okay, if you see the WebSphere application server, or in short called as in WAS. Okay, in short it is called as in WAS. It's an application server coming from the IBM family. Okay, what is an WebSphere application server? WebSphere application server is nothing but it's an application server coming from the IBM family, which is 100% okay Java J2EE compliant application server. How I can define the term WebSphere application server? WebSphere application server is an application server coming from the IBM family, which is 100% Java J2EE compliant application server. What do I mean by 100% Java J2EE compliant? I mean to say that okay, when the moment the application server was being the term application server was being introduced with the market, everyone started saying that hey, this is an application server, this is our application server. To standardize and to make more quality introduced into the application server, since application server came into the market because of the Sun Microsystems company, they said that okay, boss, if you want to call your applications, your server as an application server, it has to implement these things. It needs to have so and so things. Okay, it needs to be so and so compatible. So if your server meets all these qualities, if your server meets all these requirements, then your server is eligible to be called as an application server. For example, let's say that I go to an store, an Indian store in India, and let's say that I want to buy an oil or I want to buy some product. The moment when I'm trying to buy that particular product, what do? I immediately turn the label and I try to see whether there is an ISI mark there or not. If the ISI mark is there on that, then I assume that particular product is really good from the quality point of view and I can use it. Okay. Similarly, if you see here, when the application server was being introduced, when everyone started labeling their server as an application server, in order to implement the quality in the product, in order to standardize the product, Sun Microsystems company, right now called as an Oracle, has said that you can call your server as an application server provided these things are there. Clear? So, your WebSphere application server is an application server coming from the IBM family, which is 100% Java J2EE compliant application server. Clear, everyone? Mehboob, Jay and Nasim, anyone, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool. How about Mehboob and Nasim, anyone, any questions?
Yes, sir. Should I add that this is a J2EE Java to enterprise application? What is this? J2EE.
Java J2EE is nothing but, as I said, okay, Servlets JSP or the EJBs, okay, they are coming from the, they're coming because of the introduction of the programming languages like Servlets, JSP, EJB or the RMI. Okay, so these are all belonging to a certain area of the Java programming language called as, okay, Java J2EE API. Okay, they are they're somewhere like your, let's say if you see the companies like, okay, Oracle. Okay, what is an Oracle? Oracle is a company which not only deals with the services, but it also deals with the products also. It has got a big list of pool of products present with it. Okay, exactly the similar way, Java J2EE API, okay, it's a pool of API which has many technologies being implemented inside that. So my WebSphere application server has to be compliant to that particular API, has to be compliant to that particular standard to call itself as an application server. Clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool. So since nobody is not having any questions, okay, let me talk about another very important concept called as an architecture of a WebSphere application server. If you see the architecture of your WebSphere application server, okay, the WebSphere application server by default it is called as an middleware technology, or any application server is called as a middleware technology. Okay, why it is called as a middleware technology? Why the application server admins are called as a middleware admins? Okay, because our application servers are the one, okay, which will be there, okay, in the middle between the front end and the back end. My application server is there, okay, in the middle, okay, my front end and the back end, okay, in the middle of them I have my application server. So that's the reason my WebSphere application server is called as, okay, middleware technology. And if you see the architecture of my WebSphere application server, this architecture is still valid even for the version 8 also. So my WebSphere application server might receive a request from any of the front-end components like a web browser. What do I mean by web browser? I open the Internet Explorer or a Firefox and say www.yahoo.com. So through that browser also my application present inside the WebSphere might receive a request. I might receive a request from a front-end client from one Java application. Okay. Also I might receive a request, or with the help of the messaging clients like your MQ series or the forum JNS, okay, or the SIP, my WebSphere application server might receive a request. Okay, my WebSphere application server might receive a request from any one of these front-end components. Clear? What is my WebSphere application server? My WebSphere application server might receive a request from any one of these front-end components like your web browser or a Java J2EE application or a messaging clients. Once the request comes and hits the WebSphere application server, okay, depending upon how the code is being written, depending upon what are the layers that are getting invoked, depending upon how is the deployment descriptor, the corresponding classes, the corresponding programs will get executed. In case if that particular programs are making any call to any of the third party, to any of the backend services like your database or your SAP or any of the web services, then the corresponding components are getting invoked, they get executed and send the response back to the WebSphere. From the WebSphere, the response is given back to those front-end components, which are either your web browser or your Java application or your MQ series. Am I clear? Or any questions? Okay. So if you don't have any questions, okay, what we'll do is that, okay, we'll break here for today, okay, and tomorrow we'll start about a very terminology and the topology used in the WebSphere application server. Okay, but if you have any questions, do let me know. Okay, else tomorrow what we can do is that tomorrow we'll start off with the terminology and the topology used. From tomorrow onwards, it's very important you people be available on time, and it's very important session from tomorrow. This is just introduction. No one will ask. Yeah.